First story. The shadows that chase in Elm Ridge. It was just supposed to be a quick evening run. I do it almost every night. Same streets, same route. From the edge of Elm Ridge Park to the abandoned train tracks near the woods and back again. Nothing unusual ever happened, until tonight. The sun had already dipped beneath the horizon, leaving streaks of bruised purple and orange in the sky. I tightened my shoelaces, put my earbuds in, and took off down the street. The pavement felt familiar under my feet, the rhythm of my breath syncing with the quiet of the suburban streets. Houses glowed dimly with TV light, and porch lamps flickered on one by one. It wasn't until I passed the old sycamore trail near the back of the park that things started to feel wrong. I felt watched. Not the kind of watching where someone might peek through their curtains. This was deeper, colder, like something just beyond the tree line was moving in rhythm with me. I slowed to a jog, pulled one earbud out. Silence. But a silence that pressed against my skull. No crickets, no wind. Just my breathing and something else. Footsteps. I turned. Nothing there. Just the dark trees, frozen in place like a photograph. But the sound had been real. I know it. I picked up my pace. The trail curved near the old maintenance shed, a place kids whispered about in school. Something about a man who had vanished there during the winter of 1989. I always thought that was just small-town lore. But tonight, something about that story crawled out from the shadows of my memory and took shape. I heard it again. Faster. Closer. No shoes. No gravel crunch. Just the sickening slap of bare feet on wet dirt. I sprinted. The trees blurred, my lungs burning. The path behind me groaned, a sound like wood under pressure. And I swore I heard something breathe. Then the lights went out. The entire street ahead, usually lit by those orange sodium lamps, flickered twice, and died. I stopped. I didn't want to. I needed to keep going. But something in my body refused to move forward. Then I saw it. Something stepped out from the trees. It wasn't a person. It had the shape of one, tall, thin, but it shimmered like heat on asphalt. Its face was wrong, blurred like a long exposure photo, and it was smiling. I turned around and ran back the way I came, but the path had changed. The trail was longer. The trees closed in. I couldn't find the park. I couldn't find the street. I ran for what felt like hours. Every few seconds I'd look back, and every time it was closer. Not running, just walking, but gaining ground like the shadows bent time around it. I remember falling, hitting my knees on rocks, blood on my palms, the scent of rust and soil. When I woke up, I was in my bed. At first I thought it was a dream, but then I saw the dirt on the floor, the bloodied shoelaces, and the footprints, bare, wet, leading from the window to the foot of my bed. I never run at night anymore. But some nights when the wind's just right, I still hear it. The soft, deliberate sound of something walking barefoot through the streets of Elm Ridge. It's still looking for me. And I think next time, it won't let me wake up. Second story, Shadows on Sentinel Ridge. I never thought the Army would lead me to a place like Sentinel Ridge. When I enlisted, I imagined deserts, forests, maybe even overseas deployment, but not this stretch of forgotten hills in northern Washington. The base was called Fort Dalton, a crumbling relic from the Cold War, long since abandoned, except for a skeleton crew like ours, guarding nothing from no one. It was the end of September when I first arrived, and the air already carried that cold, metallic taste of winter. Our orders were simple. Patrol the perimeter, log any strange activity, and never, under any circumstances, enter Building 17. Of course, they never told us why. I bunked with Corporal Travis Haynes, a guy from upstate New York with a laugh too loud for the eerie silence that wrapped the base every night. The only other soldiers were Staff Sergeant Cole and Private First Class Ramirez, both hardened types who kept their heads down and their mouths shut. My first week passed quietly, though I could never shake the feeling that we were not alone. Some nights I heard footsteps crunching gravel outside, but when I peered through the fogged-up window, no one was ever there. Sometimes the radios would crackle with static and a faint whisper I could almost understand. Almost. The real nightmare began on the 14th night. Travis and I were assigned the midnight patrol, a slow, cold loop around the crumbling fence line. Halfway through, just as we were passing near Building 17, we heard it. A soft humming noise, like a choir singing far underground. "You hear that?" I asked. "Yeah," Travis said, squinting toward the building. "Probably the wind." But it was not the wind. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the soles of my boots. The door to Building 17, which had always been chained shut, stood slightly ajar, swaying like someone had just slipped inside. "We should call it in," I said, fumbling for my radio. Before I could, Travis was already moving toward the door, drawn by something unseen. "Come on, man. Orders are orders," I hissed, but he ignored me. He slipped inside, swallowed by the darkness. I hesitated for a moment, heart hammering against my ribs before I followed. I could not leave him in there. Inside, the building smelled of rust and mold. The walls were lined with broken lockers and peeling posters warning about nuclear fallout. My flashlight beam jittered wildly across the floor, catching glimpses of something wet smeared along the tiles. "Travis?" I whispered. No answer. Deeper in, the hallway slanted downward, leading to a stairwell that plunged into blackness. I thought I heard him calling my name from below, but the voice was wrong. Like it had too many echoes. I descended. The stairwell opened into a cavernous room, lit only by the weak beam of my flashlight. Rows of hospital beds, ancient and rusted, filled the space. Strapped to the beds were mannequins. At least, I thought they were mannequins at first. Until one of them turned its head toward me. My scream caught in my throat. The figure's skin was stretched too tight, its eyes wide and glistening, its mouth sewn shut. It strained against the cracked leather straps, reaching for me with bloodless fingers. I stumbled back, swinging my light wildly. More of them were moving now, a dozen or more, squirming and twitching in their restraints. "Travis!" I shouted. Then I saw him, standing across the room. Only it was not him. His face was slack, his eyes empty, and something black leaked from his ears and nose. He opened his mouth and the stitches burst, spraying the air with a wet, ripping sound. The humming grew deafening, rattling my bones. I ran, up the stairs through the dark hallway out into the freezing night. I sprinted back to the barracks where Cole and Ramirez were waiting, their faces grim. "You went inside, didn't you?" Ramirez asked. I nodded, unable to speak. Cole swore under his breath. "They'll never let you leave now." "What the hell is in there?" I managed to gasp. "Experiments," Cole said. "Leftovers from the old projects. They were supposed to be weapons. Perfect soldiers, but they kept waking up." That night, Travis's bunk remained empty. His gear stayed neatly stacked, untouched. No one spoke about it. No one even acknowledged he had ever been there. The next few days blurred together. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those stitched mouths, those reaching hands. On the 6th night after Travis disappeared, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the barracks. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Travis stood at the foot of my bed, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, black sludge dripping from his mouth. He raised a hand, beckoning me. I screamed and scrambled backward, knocking over my chair. When I looked again, he was gone. Cole and Ramirez found me huddled in the corner at dawn, clutching my rifle. "You saw him, didn't you?" Cole said, voice flat. I could only nod. "We told you," Ramirez said almost sadly. "They never let you leave." They were right. A week later, I was still there, still patrolling the dead fences, still logging strange sounds and sightings. No one came to replace me. No one came to relieve us. The calendar in the command post showed it was October, but the days all felt the same, gray, cold, and heavy with dread. One night, during patrol, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods. For a moment, I thought it was Travis again. But it was not Travis, it was me. The figure had my face, my uniform, even the same tear on my left sleeve. It smiled, a grotesque broken thing, and lifted its hand in a mock salute. I turned and ran, heart shattering in my chest. Back at the barracks, I tried to tell Cole and Ramirez, but they just stared at me with hollow, knowing eyes. That night, I packed my things. I did not care about orders anymore. I fled. I drove through the night, leaving Fort Dalton behind, the dark hills of Sentinel Ridge shrinking in my rearview mirror. But as I crossed the state line, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Only it was not me. The reflection grinned with stitched lips, black sludge oozing from the seams. In that moment I understood. You can leave Sentinel Ridge, but Sentinel Ridge never leaves you. Third story, shadows over Camp Redstone. I still can't believe they ordered us to hold Camp Redstone for another 2 nights after what happened. Nobody asked questions, though. Orders were orders, even if it meant dying in the middle of nowhere, deep in the forests of northern Washington. It started the first night after most of the division was pulled out. Only a skeleton crew was left. Me, Corporal Davis, Sergeant Owens, and Private Ellis. We joked about ghost stories to kill the time, but the unease was thick in the air like the fog rolling off the mountains. Redstone had been abandoned for years before we reopened it for training drills, and there were plenty of stories about soldiers going missing when it was active. But we never took them seriously. Not until that night. The first sign something was wrong came around midnight. Davis and I were patrolling near the southern fence when we heard footsteps behind us, but when we spun around, no one was there. Davis chuckled nervously and said it was probably Ellis screwing with us. I wanted to believe him. I really did. We returned to the barracks where Owens and Ellis were supposed to be, but when we pushed open the door, the place was empty. The bunks were perfectly made, no gear scattered around. It was like they had never been there at all. Davis cursed under his breath and pulled out his radio. Owens? Ellis? Report. Only static answered. Then, out of nowhere, the temperature dropped. Dropped. You could see your breath hanging heavy in the air. Davis and I locked eyes, and for the first time, I saw fear in him. Real fear. We decided to check the mess hall. Maybe they were there. Maybe it was a joke. The mess hall was a mess, all right. Chairs overturned, tables splintered, food trays scattered across the floor, and written on the far wall, in something dark and sticky, was a single word: stay. We backed out slowly. Davis kept glancing over his shoulder like he expected something to pounce. I felt it too, that awful crawling sensation that you're not alone, that something's just out of sight, watching. At 2 a.m, the floodlights failed. Redstone went dark, swallowed by the endless woods. We flicked on our flashlights, the narrow beams barely cutting through the darkness. Somewhere in the trees, a low humming started. It was deep, vibrating in our chests like a massive engine revving up. But it wasn't mechanical. It sounded alive. We should have left. We should have run and never looked back. But we were soldiers. Damn it. We stayed. At 3 a.m, we found Ellis, or what was left of him. He was in the motor pool, sprawled on the concrete, eyes wide and mouth frozen in a scream. His body looked drained, like someone had sucked the life right out of him. His skin was as pale as the moon. Davis puked. I just stood there, frozen, until a scraping sound pulled me back to reality. A shadow was dragging itself across the floor toward us, a shape too twisted and wrong to be human. We bolted, barely managing to lock the motor pool door behind us. From then on, it was chaos. Shadows darted between buildings. Strange whispers filled the air, always just beyond comprehension. No matter how fast we ran or how well we hid, the things outside always seemed to know exactly where we were. Owens was the next to go. He tried to make a run for the northern gate at dawn. I watched from the barracks window as something caught him. It didn't kill him outright. No, it pulled him screaming into the tree line, his cries echoing long after he vanished from sight. By the next night, it was just Davis and me, 2 men alone against whatever was haunting Camp Redstone. Around midnight, Davis snapped. He started muttering to himself, something about them being inside his head. Before I could stop him, he bolted into the woods. I chased after him, flashlight beam dancing wildly through the dark. I lost him somewhere past the old firing range. I should have turned back. I should have accepted that he was gone. But instead, I pushed deeper into the woods, calling his name. That's when I saw it. An old, crumbling bunker half buried in the earth, its rusted door hanging. I don't remember deciding to enter. I just did. Inside, it was pitch black, save for the faint glow of something pulsing deeper within. The walls were covered in strange markings, spirals and jagged lines that hurt to look at. The humming was louder here, almost unbearable. I found Davis at the center of the room. He was standing completely still, arms outstretched, facing some kind of black, writhing mass floating above a cracked stone altar. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. Then the mass noticed me. It turned, if you could call it that, and the bunker filled with a screech that shattered my eardrums. I stumbled back, tripping over debris, but it was already too late. Shadows poured from the mass like smoke, wrapping around Davis and pulling him apart piece by piece. His face never changed. It was like he didn't even feel it. I ran. God help me, I ran. I don't remember how I made it back to the barracks. I just know that when I slammed the door shut behind me, the world outside had changed. The trees were wrong, twisted, reaching. The stars were gone. Only darkness stretched beyond the fences now. At dawn, or what I think was dawn, the rescue chopper arrived. I stumbled out to the landing zone, waving frantically. They didn't see me. They hovered for a few minutes, scanning the area, then left. That's when I understood. I never left that bunker. I never escaped. Camp Redstone isn't a place anymore. It's a trap, a wound in the world that won't heal. And now I'm part of it, just another whisper in the trees, another shadow in the fog. If you ever find yourself near Redstone Forest, stay away from the old trails. Ignore the voices calling your name. And for God's sake, do not answer if you hear someone you know, because it won't be them. It never is.